Entire towns burned to the ground. The fighting and destruction during the conflict in South Sudan has displaced more than 1 million people. And in every place affected by the fighting, the bodies of the dead have been left out in the open. Fighting engulfed Juba on the 16th of December and spread around the country. Civilians soon became targets because of their tribe. Peter has to live under the protection of the UN at a camp for the displaced. He's so afraid of retribution we couldn't identify him. He was taken there after he survived the massacre of around 300 men from his Nuer tribe. He was locked in a room with hundreds of others on the outskirts of the city without explanation.
After it got dark, an armed soldier appeared in each window and doorway of the room. They fired at us from outside, and then, when everything was quiet, they came inside to look for the survivors. They went around the room with a torch, looking for people who were moving, and when they found them, they shot them dead. I hid underneath the corpses and pretended to be dead, and they never found me.
Of the 200 or 300 Nuer men inside the room, only around a dozen survived. Most of the Nuer tribe from Juba now either live at the UN camp or have fled the city. What began as a political contest between the president, who's from the Dinka tribe, and his former deputy, who is Nuer, soon spiraled into full-blown ethnic conflict. At the beginning, there were attempts to suppress the ethnic nature of the violence, but it was so widespread that over time it simply just wasn't possible. The destruction continued as territory changed hands from government to rebels and back again, in some cases 5 or 6 times. With each exchange of control, the violence escalated, with civilians not only affected, but targeted. In the town of Malakal, aid workers found patients shot in their beds by rebel forces, taking the town back from the government army. By April, other places of sanctuary were attacked, and another massacre took place at a mosque at the town of Bentu. This time the victims were Darfuris from Sudan, perceived as loyal to government forces. Just days later, there was a reprisal attack at the UN base in Bor, where Nuer civilians are living. Another massacre, another 46 people killed, this time in sight of UN peacekeepers.
What has happened in Juba is equal on what has happened to Denka in Bor, on what has happened to Denka in Malakal, and what has happened to Denka also in the oil fields in Bentu. So really all of them, they have committed atrocities. Whatever the magnitude of atrocities, they have committed it. Each side, they have to be accountable.
Each attack brings reprisals and an escalation to the violence. The political leaders have agreed to meet for peace talks, but the divisions between the tribes are so entrenched now that there are concerns a political solution won't stop the killings. Cavell, Jazeera, Juba, South Sudan.